Our next speakers, Ron and Sean, they bring decades of real-world leadership and coaching experience between them. That's between them. They're still very young. They have worked across boardrooms, business schools, and across borders. Sean spent 15 years as a CEO building Cash Crusaders into a multi-billion rand business and growing profits tenfold, and serving as an MD of a London Stock Exchange listed entity. Holds an MBA from Bond University, and Ron has consulted in 20 countries, lectures at Stellenbosch Business School, coaches C-suite leaders at companies like Investec, PepsiCo, and Woolworths, and is the author of How to Get the Job You Want. He holds master's degrees from Cambridge University and Holt Ashridge Business School. Wow. I'll take a breath now. Today, they are going to show how the journey from competent professional to outstanding leader is not just an outer one of bold action, but an inner one of mindset, growth, and the courage to change. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ron Hyams and Sean Stegman.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you. Yes.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
And thank you, Kyle. Where's he gone? Yeah, I love the questions. So I want to introduce my colleague Sean in a second, but let me just build on where Kyle left us with a question. The question we'd like to address is, what would you love to have known when you were starting your career that would have served you through your career? And I notice we haven't got too many quite youth in the room. And we've got the benefit of some experience. We've taken the journey and we are together reflecting on our journey. So Sean as CEO, myself as coach, I've been coaching, it's pushing 30 years, it's a long time. I started coaching before coaching even existed as an industry. But so here's the question. As I say, what would we love to have known? And we want to answer that question. Again, I want to build on Kyle, because we think what we would love to have known was not just data, but a way of thinking about our career. Thinking and then doing. And if you think the right way, and you ask the right questions, you can produce outstanding results. But let me introduce this guy. Kevin, thanks for your excellent introduction. Not a lot to add, but so we work now as a consulting coaching, we call it a duo. And so I've learned a lot about facilitation and coaching. I'd like to think I know everything, and I damn well don't. We all have limits, don't we, to what we know. And I think that's wisdom, is to say, look, I know all this, but there's some things I don't know. And so this guy fills in some of the gaps. So I haven't sat in the CEO's seat for 15 years. I haven't built a business with 1,000 people and so many thousand dependents. And it's been incredibly useful now to partner in this way. What do you want to say, Sean?
Yeah, Ron.
He can speak as well, this
Yeah, I can. Thank you. Yeah, so, Ron's been my coach for more than 20 years now, so it's a long-standing relationship. And we've been in business together for 4 years now, doing the work we do. And because we think that there's an element of mindset linked to people's development. So it's an in and an outer journey. And having someone who's a coach and someone who's a CEO, you get to be able to see both sides of that from different perspectives, and then the mindset journey of the in and out journey connects better. And that's what Ron and I do, is we go to companies and we talk about leadership and how you could move from that inner journey to the outer journey. And that's what we're going to talk a bit about today.
Good. So we have to talk about AI, don't we? Whatever the topic is, we've got to talk about AI, and it's already come up. So let me address that. The world will change. It will be disrupted. But I want to add something to that thought. The world will be disrupted, and it's being disrupted. But I want to say we need to disrupt ourselves. So we can't just be in the world and react to the changing world. We have to lead ourselves. And I think my spin on AI actually is AI is at the moment, maybe in a decade or whatever, I don't want to predict the time frame, it will be the master. But at the moment, I think should be the servant. And we should say, what is it I want to create? And we've started having a meeting, and I put AI on speaker, and AI joins the meeting. But it's not running the meeting. And I think that's very important to get that. It's actually a great servant. And one of the things you can ask AI to do is, because it's very sycophantic, isn't it? You'll put in something and it goes, what a wonderful idea. I think that's brilliant. Oh, and I'm kind of going, oh, do you think it's great? Yeah, fantastic. Then you put in a different prompt. Challenge me. Put yourself in the role of a challenging business leader. Put yourself in the role of the cynic. You can ask it, who to be. So make it the servant, don't let it be the leader. Now, Sean, where were we going to go with this?
Right, so
it's great having a partner, I tell you.
So what we want to talk about is the various curves that you go through in your life, and we call it the S curve. It's a commonly known thing. But when I was in my first senior role, I found out how that S curve can suddenly become a very limiting thing. And I'll tell you what happened is, I came into a company called iTouch as the operations director, and that role was quite a technical role. I worked with computer programmers. I had studied project management. I was on the PMI board, so it's quite easy to manage it as processes. Then they went and made me the MD a year later, and they listed on the London Stock Exchange. And I thought, wow, I've arrived, yay. And then suddenly I got a call from London that said, Mr. Stegman, we want to do a health check on you. I said, what's a health check? Well, there's some people that are disgruntled, they're not happy. And I went, okay. They did the health check, and it came out that I was competent at my job, but I had some blind spots around people management. And what I had not connected at that time is that as I was moving up the curve, I was going to need to do less process management and more people management. And I thought I could shove the proverbial square peg in a round hole, get to MD, and carry on doing process management with people. And people became unhappy. So I had to reach out to a coach, and I met Ron.
Wow. So one of the predictable transitions, and we want to talk about some timeless principles, because as we said, the world is changing. So what the hell are we getting, is yesterday's wisdom going to apply? Well, I think there's some principles that do apply. One of them is that when you start in business, you're an individual contributor, and you rely on the technical stuff that you've learned, the competence of the job. And then gradually, the job changes as you get more senior. And then the job shifts from how do I add value as an individual to how do I add value through others. And it's a funny, subtle shift that sometimes, the boiled frog syndrome? I'm not sure there actually are boiled frogs, but anyway, things change, you don't even notice. Suddenly, you're actually making your impact through others. And that's a whole different job. That's a whole different job. And you may not have been trained for it. You probably haven't. So I do quite a lot of work actually with law firms and partners in law firms. And it's interesting, in the legal training, there is no people bit. And yet, they're selling to people, they're managing people, they're interacting with colleagues, people. Business is people. And that ain't going to change. So that's one of those immutable things that I think there's still going to be people that we're serving. And I like what Carl's got, or maybe you're still here somewhere, but Carl, you're still here, man. What you're saying is, what are people, who's in the room? What do people need? These are the questions in business we will keep needing to ask. It'll change, the answers will change, but we need to keep asking this question. Okay, but let me just give you, so you said I turned up as your coach, and I shared a framework with you, which again, I think it's terribly simple, but very powerful. Let me just share that framework.
Yeah. you want to hold your mic?
You can do. Okay.
This is Ron, the artist. He's going to paint a picture of Van Gogh. It's going to take him half an hour. Yeah, I hope you got time.
Okay. So this is called an S-curve because it looks like an S. And this is actually what a career looks like. So at iTouch, let's link it to...
Mike.
No. So at iTouch you join and you think, yeah, I know how to do this technical job. But actually there came a point where the job had changed. It became a leadership of people job. So actually, Sean needed to jump onto another S-curve. And so one of the principles we want to share with you, I said you need to be proactive in this world, is you need to sometimes anticipate and make the shift. Don't wait for HR to give you a call and say, what you're doing doesn't really work anymore.
And this on that, Ron, is that I didn't think there was anything wrong with me. I said, and Ron said, why do you think there's anything wrong with me? He said, well, I think there was an event that happened in my company where, you know, one of my brand managers came into my office and wanted an increase. And I said to her, this is when I newly minted MD position, and I said, I'm not giving you an increase. He says, well, then I'm going to leave. And I said, don't let the door hit you on the backside on the way out. Wrong move. And Ron said, yeah, maybe your people skills aren't as good as they should be. You need to pivot.
Yeah, okay. So I pointed out, you know, when you get to be quite senior, everything you do sends a message. You know, you're modeling something. So that little bit cheeky, maybe not quite on remark, sends a message about how you lead, and it's not the right message. And that political awareness, that people skill, is something you need to start building. So as your coach, I wanted to just give you, and let me say this as well, a safe space to reflect. Because it's very hard with colleagues to own up, or even to properly reflect, what am I doing well? And maybe let's think about this last meeting. What actually happened? How could I have done it better? And it takes a safe space to freewheel a bit and go, actually, that worked, that maybe not so good. And as a coach, what you do is you say, okay, at the next meeting, what are you going to do differently? And that's the iterative learning process.
So should I talk about Cash Crusaders then?
Why don't you?
So then I found the Cash Crusaders headhunted me after iTouch, and I thought, okay, well, I've now learned all these lessons, and you know, I've got my people management like on tap. And you realize how S-curve sometimes you don't necessarily think it's going to come at you, that you need to pivot and change, but the environment changed. And I hadn't been there 6 months at Cash Crusaders when the 2008 financial crisis hit. And I thought we were going into a 1929 depression. I barely knew where the toilet was. And now I've got to navigate this company through what could be the worst position that anyone has ever felt. And again, I had to pivot. And what I kept doing is I kept reaching out to my coach for perspective, going to Ron saying, I'm quite frightened, I'm feeling vulnerable, I've got no one to talk to, because it becomes incredibly lonely at the top. So you don't have a whole team of people, and you can't go to the board and say, I'm actually feeling very scared that this thing's not going to work. Have you got any ideas for me?
Don't do that.
Because that board's going to show you where the door is.
Yeah, so, you know, when the recession hit, I think it's fair to say the word was overwhelm and fear. And as you've just said, who are you going to say that to? What's that thing with Ghostbusters? Who you going to call? Ghostbusters. Who you going to call? Your coach. And the first bit is just, Sean, tell me, how you feeling, man? You know, check in. How you doing? Oh, it's tough. Tell me about it. And then it's almost like you have to go through the layers of, this is what's going on for me. Okay. So then what can you do? is where that conversation needs to land. But there's something about giving it a bit of space.
Yeah. So Ron asked me, what could you do?
Yeah.
Very cool question. If you knew you had the answer, what would you do? I said, Ron, we've got this point of sale system with a company called Pilot. I don't think it's fit for purpose. No one else will want to build it for us because when the 2008 crisis hit, no one did anything. They just battened down the hatches. And he said to me, so what are you going to think? What are you going to do then? I said, we're going to build the point of sale system ourselves. And he looked at me and he went, sure? I said, yeah. And we did. We actually went and built it ourselves. And a year later, that helped us pivot our business to the next level. So I used an opportunity to create another S-curve to be able to pivot the business. And that was a key inflection point for us to be able to build a data-driven business, a technology-driven business. And in my mind, I had this vision where I said, I'm going to turn a franchise business into a technology business using franchise, doing franchising, not the other way around.
So I think, the coaching dynamic is about, what's difficult is when a problem gets here. Do you know what I mean? You can't think straight. I've got this recession, I've got this technology problem, and it's here. And we need to think clearly. And, so part of it is to step back, take the problem from here and go here, and have the space to reflect on it. And part of the thing I like about these ESCOs, once Sean had that language, he could see that this was just going to repeat. Whether it is developing a new piece of technology or learning people's skills, it's that thing of, oh, here's another transition. And it becomes less overwhelming. 5 minutes, okay.
So you want to maybe talk about Pepsi, man?
Yeah. It's useful having you around, actually. Thank you, Sean. Okay, let me talk about a case study. The reason I want to talk about it is this process of reinvention. It actually doesn't matter if you're just starting in the world. And I part of the frame of this was, what could you offer to young folks? And I think what we're saying is, for a start, as you will go through a learning curve, it's not a straight line. You don't learn step by step. No, there's errors along the way. There's setbacks. It's a curve. It gets very steep at times, and that frame is incredibly helpful. So let me quickly talk about PepsiCo. And I think what's interesting is I was coaching the commercial director at Pepsi, and he became MD. So he was seen as a very good commercial director. So he was he was on the technical curve. And what Pepsi was saying was, we now need a culture that's very inclusive, very collaborative, and we're not sure you're that person. So here's a guy who was very successful, but the world had changed. And like the dinosaurs, he had to adapt or get extinct. And what he did, so I was coaching this guy, and I think he sort of got the message. And some of the things he did, I wasn't even expecting him to do. So he met with his team, and he asked me before they had a strategy day planned. And let's call him Derek. It's not his name because I need to respect confidentiality. But he said, Ron, talk to each of my team members and ask them, if you were the boss, how would you run this business? So I had all those conversations. Then we turn up for the strategy day. And everyone's going, oh, Derek's going to now show us the strategy. And everyone's sat around, and he says, you're expecting me to tell you the strategy, aren't you? I'm not going to. You're going to tell me the strategy. The room went very silent. Because you're asking people, he was actually asking people to shift gear. They'd been in this mode. That was the status quo. That was the comfort zone. No. So he said, I will be your coach, but you've done some thinking. Do your thinking, pull a strategy together, and execute it. Call on me if you need me. We've
got to wrap up.
Yeah, okay. So anyway, sure, they achieved double-digit growth. He got his promotion to MD. What struck me, was by doing less and asking good questions, this guy became seen as a fantastic leader. And I think it's such a powerful lesson for us. It's not about being the guy with all the answers, or woman. It's not about being the hero. And it's back to this curve. You know, you need to become the facilitator of people. And again, I think it's very AI relevant. How do you bring the best out of people?
Yeah. So what we could take away from youths today is that in business, in life, you have to do hard things. You've got to stretch yourself out of your comfort zone. Know that that S-curve is going to top out. If you stay in the comfort zone, that S-curve tracks down. When you step out of that comfort zone into the new S-curve, that's when you're doing the hard things again, and it's iterative. You'll do that through all your career.
Yeah, and just one thing I'd add to that, which has almost become a given. Get a coach, get a sounding board. You don't have to take this journey alone. And you shouldn't, it's not smart. I think we started with a lot of sporting examples. You know, what top tennis player would not have a coach? What top rugby team would not have a coach? You wouldn't think of it. So, you know, I've got a coach. You've got a coach.
Yep.
Anyway, so there's that wonderful, I will stop. The African proverb, isn't there, which is if you want to walk fast, walk alone. But if you want to walk far, walk together. We'll leave it there.
Thank you.
Thank you.